There is a watch on your wrist right now that tells every enthusiast in the room exactly how long you have been doing this. Not the price, the choice. Somebody spends $100 on a Submariner-shaped Invicta, straps it on, and every collector who walks past reads the whole timeline in about half a second. This is a list of the 5 watches nearly everybody buys in their first year, convinced they found a hidden gem the rest of the world somehow missed. And here's the part that matters. 4 of them are a phase you are supposed to grow out of. But one of these 5 is secretly the best sign you could possibly send, and it is the one everybody buys as a joke. We will get to that one. Let's start with the watch that turns into a personality. Number 1. The Seiko SKX, or its cushion-cased cousin, the Turtle. Here's how it always goes. A guy buys his first real automatic diver for a few $100, feels the weight of it settle on his wrist, flips it over, sees that little tsunami wave stamped on the steel case back, and something switches on in his brain. For the next 8 months, that Seiko diver is not a watch. It is his entire personality. He brings it up at dinner. He tells people it is water resistant to 200 meters like he is planning to test it. And honestly, he is not wrong to love it. That is the trap. The SKX was so good that Seiko discontinued it back in 2019. And here is the strange part. The used prices went up, not down. People started hoarding them like tiny steel investments. The Turtle that took its spot in the lineup, the SRP 777, has a hacking, hand-winding movement the old one never had, and it sits around $350 to $400. These are excellent watches. Nobody sane is arguing that. The problem is never the watch. The problem is the guy who is still telling the exact same SKX story 3 years later, wearing the exact same watch, like the journey ended at the trailhead. Because here's the detail most people miss. Seiko did not stop at the entry level. Climb the Prospects line and you get sapphire crystal, better movements, cleaner finishing. Keep climbing and you reach the Marine Master, a couple $1,000s of the best dive watch Japan makes, and it wears like something 3 times the price. Same DNA, same brand you already fell in love with, just grown all the way up. So if you own the SKX or the Turtle, do not sell it. That watch is the reason you are here. Put it on a fresh rubber strap and keep it forever as the one that started everything. Just do not let it be the ceiling. Let it be the floor. The taste that picked that watch was correct. It simply is not finished yet. And the second watch on this list? That taste was correct too. The execution is where the whole thing falls apart. Number 2. The Invicta Pro Diver. If the Seiko is the watch guys grow into, the Invicta is the watch the internet hands them on the very first day. Type affordable automatic watch into Amazon, and this thing is basically the top result. And it has been camped near the top of that search for over a decade. 40-some thousand reviews, a glossy black Submariner silhouette for well under $100, and a reliable Seiko movement ticking away inside. On paper, it is an absurd amount of watch for the money, and that is exactly why half the hobby starts right here. Here's what happens the first week he wears it. Somebody at the office says, "Nice Rolex," and he gets a little jolt out of that. Does not correct them too hard. That right there is the whole giveaway, because the Pro Diver is not doing its own thing. It is wearing the exact costume of the most copied dive watch on Earth, right down to the crown guards and the Cyclops bubble over the date. Every collector who clocks it knows precisely what it is and precisely what stage you are standing at. And there is one more tell, a small, cruel one. Invicta stamps its own name in giant letters down the side of the case. So the one angle nobody wants attention on becomes the loudest thing on the watch. So yeah, not exactly subtle. None of this makes it a bad buy. It is a perfectly fine buy. It is just not a destination. If you love that 40mm dive silhouette, and plenty of people honestly do, there is a whole ladder sitting above the homage. A Steinhardt Ocean 1 or a Christopher Ward Trident gets you Swiss movements, sapphire, and real build quality somewhere in the $400 to $800 range. And the Christopher Ward has quietly stopped copying anyone and turned into its own design. Then, years down the line, when it actually means something, the real Rolex Submariner is still there at 9 or 10 grand, waiting for the version of you that earned it. The Invicta is training wheels, excellent training wheels, But nobody frames the training wheels and hangs them on the wall. Which brings us to the exact opposite mistake, and this is the one I watch smart people make constantly. Number 3. The Pagani design, or its slightly more refined sibling, the San Martin. And this is the one that fools the people who are certain they are too clever to be fooled. Here is the move. He has done his research now. He has passed the Invicta. He has learned the vocabulary. Sapphire crystal, Seiko NH35 movement, 316L steel, ceramic bezel. And he finds these micro brands, Pagani and San Martin, stacking every one of those specs onto a $40 to $200 homage of some Rolex or Omega, and the math looks unbeatable. More watch, less money, on paper, than almost anything out there. So he buys the spec sheet. And that is the mistake. Because a spec sheet is not a reason to love a watch. Ask him 6 months later which piece he actually reaches for, and it is never the one he bought to win an argument. It is sitting in the box. Because he never loved how it looked, he loved how it sounded when he listed the parts out loud. This is the trap nobody warned you about. The beginner mistake is not buying cheap. It is buying with a calculator instead of your eyes. Serious collectors are not spec blind, but watch one long enough and you notice something. They buy the watches that stop them mid-sentence, the dial that catches light in a way they cannot stop staring at, the proportions that just sit right on the wrist in a way no spec sheet on earth can capture. Sometimes that watch has worse numbers than the micro brand and costs more, and they buy it anyway because they are not assembling a parts list. They are choosing an object they want to look at every single day for the next 20 years. Remember the watch I said was secretly the best sign, the one everybody buys as a joke? This is exactly why. It is coming, and it is going to make total sense the second you see the pattern. So the fix here is almost stupidly simple. Stop reading the spec sheet first. Walk past 100 watches and wait for the one that genuinely stops you. Buy that one. It might be a Seiko, it might be a Hamilton, it might be something with a boring old movement and no sapphire at all. Does not matter. If you love looking at it, you won. If you bought it to win a forum thread, the forum already moved on, and the watch is still in the drawer. Quick thing before the back half. If you have owned anything on this list so far, you are in very good company, and this channel is where that taste grows up. Subscribe and stick around. Now, number 4. And this one is not even a mistake, it is baggage. Number 4. The giant fossil chronograph. And this one is a little different because he did not buy it as a watch guy. He bought it before all of this, back when a watch was just an accessory. Probably a gift, probably a birthday. A big chrome 46mm slab with 3 little subdials he has never once used, on a leather strap that is starting to crack at the lugs. You know the one. It is enormous, it is shiny. And back then he genuinely thought it looked expensive, because to a guy who does not know watches yet, big and shiny is the entire definition of a nice watch. And it is still in the rotation. Not because it is good, because of sentiment. His mom gave it to him, or it is the watch he wore to his first real interview. And now that he is deep in the hobby, it sits in the box next to watches that cost 5 times as much, and he cannot quite bring himself to retire it. I respect the sentiment, I do. But let us be honest about what it is. Those 3 subdials? On most of these fashion chronographs, at least one of them is fake, purely decorative, connected to nothing. He is wearing the idea of a chronograph, not a chronograph. And that is the fixable part. Because a real chronograph is one of the great little joys in this hobby, and it does not cost a fortune. A vintage-style Seiko Chrono, or a Dan Henry, which builds these gorgeous 1960s racing chronographs for a couple $100, using a Seiko Mecha Quartz movement, gives you crisp pushers, a seconds hand that snaps back to 0 the instant you reset it, subdials that actually count something real. The first time you time a pasta pot or a parking meter with a chronograph that genuinely works, something clicks into place. Suddenly the complication on your wrist does exactly what the word has been promising all along, instead of just sitting there for decoration. So keep the fossil. Sincerely. Sentiment is allowed, and not every watch has to be a flex. Some watches earn their spot for reasons a stranger will never see and never needs to. Just do not let it be the chronograph you point to when someone asks about your collection. Move it out of the starting lineup and onto the shelf of things you keep for reasons that have nothing to do with watchmaking. Then buy one chronograph you actually understand and use. Once you have felt a good one work, you will get why this matters. Which leaves the last watch. And this is the one I have been promising you since the very first sentence. The joke that turns out to be the smartest thing on the entire list. Number 5. The Casio F-91W. He bought it as a joke. 10, maybe 15 bucks. That tiny black resin watch you have seen on 1,000 different wrists. The one from 1989 that has quietly become the best-selling watch in human history. Over 100 million of them made. He grabbed it ironically, a little bit as a meme. Haha, look, the $10 Casio, so random. Maybe he saw it on a rapper, or on some tech founder worth a fortune who could buy any watch on the planet and picked this one instead. He figured he was in on the joke. Wear it once for the photo, toss it in a drawer. And then something happened that he did not plan. He kept wearing it. Not for the meme anymore, because it is quietly, stupidly good at simply being a watch. It weighs almost nothing on the wrist. The battery lasts something like 7 years. He can wear it in the shower, to the gym, to sleep, on a long flight, and never think about it once. It never needs winding, never needs setting, never asks him for anything. And slowly, without noticing the exact day it happened, the joke watch became the watch he reaches for on the mornings he is not trying to impress a single soul. Here is where the roast turns all the way around, because this last one is a compliment, and I mean that completely. The guy who ends up truly loving that little Casio is the guy who is going to make it in this hobby. And it is worth understanding why, because it quietly ties this entire list together. Every other mistake here comes from the same place: buying a watch for what it signals to other people. The sub-shaped Invicta signals money. The spec sheet micro brand signals that you did your homework. Even the Seiko Forever guy is a tiny bit signaling that he is above all the flexing. The Casio signals nothing at all. It is the one watch on this whole list that could not possibly be about anybody else. There is no status in a $10 Casio. Nobody across the room is impressed, which means the only possible reason on earth to wear it is that you actually like it. And a man who can put a $10 watch and a $10,000 watch on the same wrist rack and love both of them for exactly what they are, with no contradiction and no apology, that man has already arrived. He just does not know it yet. He quietly beat the whole game while everyone else was still arguing about water resistance in the comments. So that is the list. The Seiko you turned into a personality. The Invicta in a Rolex costume. The micro brand you bought with a calculator. The Fossil you cannot quite let go of. And the Casio you strapped on as a joke and never took back off. And this is the single thread running through every one of them. None of these watches is the problem. Not one of them. The phase is not the problem either. Getting frozen inside it is the only real mistake on the whole list. Every watch here is a good sign. Proof you already have taste worth growing, as long as it stays a starting line and never hardens into a finish line. So yes, everyone can tell you just got into watches, and honestly, that is the best part.